which is Councillor Nidálig. Is that correct? Yeah, and then we'll open the debate.
I just want to read into the record my motion that this City Council ensures the protection of animals, including carriage horses, in our city and makes every effort to bring about compliance with the law by all concerned in this regard, and further makes every effort to ensure that the required legislation to regulate operation of carriage horses is put in place and that a report be provided on the matter. Now, I know the issue around the legislation regarding carriage horses is as a result of a lacuna arising in the law, and on that matter I'm going to ask the manager, will he please again write to Minister Ross to kind of speed up that issue around the issuing of carriage horse licences in our city, because currently there is a problem whereby carriage horses are not licensed and people using them feel that they are licensed. So can we please put pressure on the Minister to move forward on that issue? And the reason that I put this motion down is because people, I know all of us are aware that there are issues around welfare in relation to horses in our city and dogs in our city. And on horses, Lord Mayor, I wish we could, I suppose, as a City Council, encourage or enforce horse licensing requirements. I think the Council should be knocking on doors of yards in the city, Gardaí with them if required. We do the same thing for dog licences. I think we need to be able to knock on doors where people are keeping horses in yards. Some people are keeping horses in small back gardens. You know, anybody keeping a horse in Dublin City Council without a licence is in breach of Section 37 of the Control of Horses Act and Dublin City Council's Control of Bylaws 2014. The Council needs to proactively encourage licence, and at the moment we don't. On the issue of dogs, there's a lot of people who have come to me in relation to the Ashton Dog Pound. I know in our budget just passed recently we've put aside some €340,000 for the operation of Ashton Dog Pound, and the 3 other local authorities are paying money to Ashton Dog Pound. I think in the region of, if we take the 4 local authorities together, there's up to near on 900 being paid for Ashton Dog Pound. I'll come back with the rest of my questions when I get my right to reply. Gormagat Ardver.
Don't worry, I won't second it. Don't worry, I won't take it. Can I go? Just, Deputy Lord Mayor, I fully support this motion here. I think we have a very ambivalent attitude when it comes to the welfare of animals in this city. And I said all too often we see horses being kept on public open spaces, in gardens. And unfortunately, we seem to have, I don't know, an attitude that, well, there's nothing we can do about it, and asking residents to take civil matters against the people who keep horses in their gardens. This is a serious welfare issue. Those animals don't have a voice, and we as human beings, hopefully with a bit of compassion, we have to be the voice of whether they be horses or dogs or wherever the case may be. And I think all too often in the past we've been prepared to hide under legislation, etc. Listen, at the end of the day, I have no difficulty with people who have the proper conditions to keep horses or keep dogs or wherever the case may be. But in the middle of a capital city, obviously there are limitations on what type of animals we can keep. And I would just hope going forward that a motion like this, I suppose, instills upon the local authority the desire and the action needed to take to ensure that we have a number of staff available that can implement, as I say, good welfare of animals. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Nigálig.
Gormagat. I'd like to support Deirdre's motion. And when she spoke the last time, she spoke passionately about her concern for animal welfare. I also want to raise my concern about the legal lacuna that now exists with horse-drawn carriages. At the moment, there is no legislation that Dublin City Council are using, and that is causing a huge concern. This needs to be addressed as soon as possible. There needs to be a licence system for horse-drawn carriages and a vetting procedure. People are getting into carriages and they presume that the driver is vetted and that the horse's welfare is being monitored by someone. That is not the case. And these are concerns that the horse carriage owners themselves are raising. They don't want to be working in a vacuum. It's a complex issue, and it's made more complicated and put on the long finger because it spans across so many different departments that they're just book passing on this. So I really think that Dublin City Council and then the Minister with responsibilities for this needs to get together as soon as possible. We cannot have a situation where we don't have a system in place for licensing horse-drawn carriages. Gormaigad.
Yeah, I just wanted to support Councillor Heaney's motion. I think it's important that we take a two-pronged approach when we're dealing with urban horse ownership in Dublin, and one of that is if we're going to provide horse ownership and stables for those who are fairly taking care of their horses, then we should also tighten up the legislation to make sure that those who aren't given the opportunity to neglect equines within the city. I had one of the local carriage draw horse owners in my clinic there a while ago, and he was campaigning and trying to raise this issue that none of us are probably aware of. And when Councillor Heaney had raised it there a while ago and she said there was a lacuna in the law, I wasn't actually sure what the issue was, but having brought it to light, I can see where the issue's raised. I also just wanted to kind of mention the My Lovely Horse Rescue, because it's those that have been putting pressure on those who should be taking responsibility, both in local council and in government. And they have also been working and putting pressure on Shane Ross's department, because it's him that needs to repeal the law so that the bylaws can then be drafted. And they also have the bylaws ready and drafted to go. So there really should be no other, all the hard work has been done from being brought to council for the likes of the My Lovely Horse Rescue. So hopefully us discussing this, bringing it to light and making other councillors aware of it can actually progress it that bit further. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to support Councillor Heaney's motion and congratulate her for bringing it to the attention of the Council. The point she makes in relation to the lack of legislation relating to horse carriages is extremely important. As the previous speaker has said, My Lovely Horse, the charity, has been highlighting this issue for a long time at this stage, and Minister Ross refuses to prioritise the implementation of relevant legislation, resulting in both horse welfare issues and health and safety risk to users of the service who don't realise that there's no legislation and don't realise the threat they're under. Councillor Heaney also highlighted the difficulty with enforcing the horse licensing. Until we begin to do so, those who own horses, and the majority being well treating the horses, those that don't will have nothing to fear and will continue to do as they're doing. It's absolutely vital that we put some resources into enforcing the horse licensing system. Gormagat.
Councillor. Councillor Boylan is next, but can we ask all the other contributors to be brief, because we're under time pressure now at the moment.
Yeah, I just want to speak out in support of the motion and thank Councillor Heaney for bringing it forward. And while speaking out about the neglect and the ill treatment of horses, which we should do at all stages, we do need licensing and enforcement around that. But we also need to recognise that we do have some horse owners in the city who are very good to their horses. I myself, when I was younger, had a horse, and she was well looked after for the duration of the time that I had her, and there is loads of kids who are looking for stables and stuff like that to be built in their area so that they can look after their horses. So it's very important that while we're addressing the issue, that we don't neglect the kids and the teenagers who actually do look after horses and love to have them and keep them safe, but we definitely do need legislation. Thank you.
I got Councillor O'Farrell.
You know, I too want to support Councillor Heaney's motion. Councillor Heaney has a long-standing interest in the welfare of animals on this council, so I want to support your motion. I note that it mentions all animals in the city, and I'd just like a report. There was, back in the council term 2009 to 2014, there was a Labour councillor, Claire O'Regan was her name, and I seem to remember she had a motion passed. I'm not sure if it was in the SPC or the council. It was about circus animals, and that we wouldn't have circus animals on our properties in circuses. And that was passed by the council, the 2009-2014 Council, Claire O'Regan. So if we could get a report back from that to council, I'd appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Councillor Horner.
Thanks very much. So just similarly, very happy to support the motion to see improved welfare standards for horses and all animals in the city, and just very important that the cultural rights of those who look after and maintain horses in the city is central to the interventions that are made, and the support approaches for welfare are looked at before we kind of engage overly heavily in a punitive approach to it, and engagement with the communities who are looking after and maintaining particularly horses, but all animals from that regard. And then just secondly, as an additional issue that has been mentioned, just road safety issues, horses that are using the roads. It's often not the people who are maintaining them, but often other road users. And it would be very good for the council to engage with within this programme with road safety and just ensuring that everybody's aware of correct usage, and that there are measures brought in for when people are abusing animals within the road space that are there. Thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A very small suggestion. There are regulations certainly in relation to the horse and carriages, the ones we see sort of coming from the Guinness hop store and around Stephen's Green and so forth. But the real problem is that you can't identify them. And I just have suggested before that there be a registration plate requirement both at the front and at the back. So anybody using them that had a complaint would know exactly who the carrier was, and from a point of view of law enforcement, or if there had been accidents or whatever, they could be easily identified. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, well, that's a matter for the members. Can we extend the meeting to 10 o'clock?
Basically, is it three-quarters? The majority of people have to decide to extend, so you'll have to vote on extending the meeting, you know, so. Okay.
Well, we still have another 20 minutes of ordinary time left.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have another 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Have to do it before 9.
We're returning to the agenda after this item.
But you have to do it before 9. So, yeah. So, will we take the vote now to propose to extend the meeting until 10 o'clock? Is that the proposal? But you can vote on it.
Now, members, we're going to have a vote.
Yeah.
There's a proposal before the floor.
Where basically people were putting a vote under standing orders to extend the meeting until 10 o'clock. This, a majority of people have to agree that extension. Okay, can you proceed to vote on that? And it's the extension of the meeting until 10 o'clock.
Agreed, but I'm leaving early. What's the blue? What's the blue?
We're closing the vote now.
Where's the conscience, James? I find it there a couple of times. It's not on there. 11A. Capital button, sorry. 11.
Back to Councillor Heaney's motion.
You look very eager, Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, well, are we back to the motion?
Of the 56 members who are present, 33 voted in favour of extending the meeting until 10 p.m, 23 voted against. The meeting is extended till 10 p.m. Thank you, members.
I will just remind members that if we're dealing with any reserved items after 9:30, you do have to keep a quorum, you know. So that's just to let you know.
The debate continues.
Just to say that I agree, Lord Mayor, with the motion. I think Councillor Heaney and Councillor Nindalig are right. We've spoken about regulating rickshaws, and I think in the same way we need to regulate the licensing and regulation of horses and carriages across the city. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Pigeon. It hasn't been discussed for more than half an hour, Councillor Pigeon, so unfortunately you can't stand.
I'll be very brief in that case.
There's only 2 more speakers. Councillor McAdam.
I'll be very brief. Firstly, can I just commend Councillor Heaney for putting forward the motion. In terms of legislative proposals, I understand Minister Ross has finally decided to bring forward proposals that are going to come to government before the end of the year, which is welcome, but I fully accept he's an example of someone who sat in the opposition benches for so long and can't make a decision on anything. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Donna Cooney.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that I support this. I think I spoke on it previously, but just to say I would support the welfare of animals in our city, and that we need to be conscious that they're cared for in a way that is, so I don't want to take up the time anymore, but just say I'd be very supportive of that, and that that it would be enacted on, that it wouldn't be something that we just had as a motion and didn't actually follow through. And as was mentioned before, my lovely horse is thank you.
We have 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes. I'm going to allow Councillor Batten to speak, and then I have to go to a vote.
I'd just like to highlight that I fully support this motion, and in relation to it, I would like to emphasise the need for more housing horse services and community services. There's a number of good services such as Meekstown and the Cherry Orchard services, and the vital therapeutic and diversion programmes that horse ownership provide for youth services is really important. So this motion needs to reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Batten. I'm going to call on the manager.
Lord Mayor, actually, really, I think the main issue here is really the legislation or regulation, which is lacking. We'll make representations to the Minister in relation to that. And also, we have a section dealing with, I suppose, the control of horses and control of dogs. What we can do is we look at how we can proactively encourage the licensing of horses in relation to that. Councillor Farrell's point, we'll have to come back to you on that in relation to the motion of circus animals, and we'll report back to you on that.
Is that like agreed? You either make 30 seconds now, Councillor Heaney, or you wait until next week's meeting.
Well, then I'll wait until next month's meeting. No, but in fairness, like, it is an issue. I've been raising this topic.
You have 2 minutes to conclude, Councillor.
I've raised this topic. I've raised this
Councillor Heaney, you have 2 minutes to conclude.
I've raised this topic so many.
You have 2 minutes to conclude.
Sorry, I'm speaking.
Yeah,
I've raised this topic on so many occasions. Sorry, can I speak, Lord Mayor?
You have 2 minutes to conclude the debate. Yep.
I've raised this topic on so many occasions because so many people have raised the issue around animal welfare with me. One is in relation to the welfare of horses, and the issue is not mainly to do with the legislation. The issue is mainly to do with how we follow up on our own policy in terms of how horses are tethered in fields in parts of our city. We need to follow up on licensing of people who hold horses and who are in breach of legislation, not the one in terms of Shane Ross, which a councillor has mentioned he's working on. The other issue is the renewal of the contract for the Ashton Dog Pound is up for renewal in June. There are a lot of issues outstanding in relation to the dog pound where people are not aware of where, if their dog, for example, is taken by a dog warden and put into the dog pound, there's no website where people can look to see if their animal is or is not in the dog pound. Also, we're putting so much money into Ashton Dog Pound, and I think for the past 20 years the same vet is inspecting the same buildings. Nothing has been done in terms of, I suppose, upgrading the facilities in the dog pound. So I really think I'd appreciate if people I'd appreciate when I'm speaking, please. I've waited long enough for the motion to come up, but we need to stop fobbing people like me off, telling me that there is a particular services there when there patently isn't services there. I was led to believe by management that we had an equine specific vet, and then I found out we do not have an equine specific vet. So I just want to put this on the record. I want the dog pound contract to be looked into seriously before it is renewed. I think people from the appropriate SPC should arrange a visit to Ashton Dog Pound to see the conditions that dogs are being kept in. For we as council, as taxpayers, we are providing huge amounts of money to the dog pound. So we need to know what taxpayers' money is being spent on, and I would urge people in all of their different strategic policy committees to make sure that the welfare of animals in our city is not fobbed off and pushed aside. There are situations where unnecessary suffering is being inflicted on animals in our city, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we reduce that as much as we can. Gormagat Ordvar.
Thank you very much. So is that motion agreed? Agreed.
Item 12, report.
Sorry, Deirdre, just to say, I think the way that motion has been dealt with over possibly 3 meetings, it's not Councillor Heaney's fault that she waited since June for her meeting to be dealt, or motion to be dealt with, and it has never been debated for more than 20 or 25 minutes in total. It's a matter of the standing orders which do need to be reviewed about how we consider the motions, and I'd urge the standing orders subcommittee, which I'm a member of as well, to deal with that matter and bring it back to us.
I did agree on previous occasions to facilitate the business, not to take the motion. So, you know.
You're 100% correct, Councillor.
Item 12, report number 315, draft section 48 development contribution scheme 2020 to 2023. Can I have a proposer for that, Councillor Jackson? Can I have a seconder for that, Councillor Jackson?
Okay, I'm going to bring the manager in on that one.
What is proposed here is that we put this out in public consultation, and with your agreement, I suggest we have a substantive debate when we get the results of the public consultation.
Is that agreed?
Item 13, report number 340. It's Dublin City Council SPC 2019 to 2024 sectoral and public PPN membership. We have an amendment to that from Councillor Freehill, which is including senior citizens affairs be included in the housing SPC.
Is Councillor Freehill's motion agreed?
Agreed. And so can we agree the report as amended?
Agreed.
Can I have a proposer and seconder for that? Is Councillor Larry O'Toole and Councillor Boylan. Then we go on to the disposals of properties.
Can I take all items together?
Lord Mayor, did we just go past item 12 just like that? Well, I wanted to question, but I didn't get a chance. It just flew through it.
Sorry,
going out for consultation.
Sorry, Councillor Cooney.
I had a couple of questions quite pertinent.
Councillor Cooney, sorry, for members.
Yeah.
Councillor Cooney, you will not be allowed in. You were given an opportunity, and it was not. Councillor Cooney, will you listen to me? Councillor Cooney, will you listen to me? It was open for you to intervene at that time. You didn't. You missed your opportunity. The manager was clear that it's only going out to public consultation, that the public will be considered on it, and a substantial debate will happen at it. And a substantial.
I had a couple
Councillor
of
Cooney, are you going to speak over me?
I had a couple of important questions related to that. What's the point?
Moving on, Councillor Cooney, I did my best to try and explain it to you. Thank you.
It's fairly important. You're going on to Devney Gardens, and we're talking about.
Councillor Cooney, you're out of order, Councillor Cooney. Councillor Cooney, you'll be removed from the chamber. Thank you. Move on.
Proposed disposals.
Members.
Item 14, proposed disposals of properties. I'm proposing to take items A to F together. Are you agreeable to that? Councillor Lacey and Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Lacey wants to come in.
Lord Mayor, can I ask a question? There's a couple of granting of leases here. Can I just ask the manager a technical question? If a lease has been extended, does that have to come back to the council, or is that an executive decision?
Come back to council.
I'm asking.
Yes, it would have to come back to, every time you extend, because you're still disposing of an interest in the land on a continuous basis, so it has to come back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'll come back to you in relation to this.
So All items to F are agreed. Councillor Terence Flanagan, you have a question? No? Okay.
We can move on to items 15 and 16, which are both on O'Devany Gardens. Can I have a proposer and seconder for those together? Item 15 is for noting, item 16 is a rescind decision. That's Councillor Flanagan and Councillor McAdam.
Can I open a list on this issue?
No,
I've opened the list.
Yeah, okay.
If anyone wishes to speak, please indicate. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, that was an error on my behalf. Sorry, if people could deselect for a second. The motion, it's a motion which we're considering. Councillor Lyons is the lead name on the motion. Councillor Lyons will have 3 minutes to propose the motion, and then we will move to 2 minutes per speaker. And I'll open a list after Councillor Lyons speaks, if that's okay. Councillor Murray has a point of order.
So, sorry, Deirdre, it was I proposed the report, not Councillor McAdam.
Oh, okay.
He's very clear on that.
Okay, Councillor Murray, not McAdam then.
Okay, so I'm going to allow Councillor Lyons first before I open the list. Councillor Lyons, 3 minutes.
Okay, Lord Mayor, thank you for that. Okay, we've been around this issue since February of 2015. And I think it's hugely important. Normally, I believe when a decision is taken, you move on. But I think that this is so fundamentally flawed, and I think the issue is just so fundamentally important to the City of Dublin and the people living and struggling and trying to access affordable accommodation in this city. More and more people have been squeezed out, that we have to revisit. And I didn't put this motion to rescind forward lightly, and I thank my independent and for-profit colleagues for signing it too. Nobody in this chamber, nobody has a mandate to do what they did on November 4th, to gift prime public land to a private developer, bar Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. I've looked at the manifestos and I've looked at the policies of all of the other parties to the Dublin Agreement, and they have no mandate to do this. Fianna Fáil indeed have an obligation to support this rescinding motion because they signed and their signatories to the Dublin Agreement, which talked about public housing on public land. Indeed, there were 2 motions on the floor, 5 and 10, from a Labour and a Green Party councillor, which talks about public housing on public land. And I think that in order, and I mean, this is a red line. I think St Anne's, in terms of planning in the City of Dublin, is a red line with regard to these SHD developments. I think O'Devany Gardens, with us here in the City Council, is a red line in terms of the idea and implementation of public housing on public land. If we do not change course now, I think we can kiss goodbye. Yeah, we're looking at industrial zoned lands, perhaps changing them. We're looking at the depot sites, perhaps changing them. But if we don't, I think, change the Housing Land Initiative from the failed PPP that it's set up to be, I think we'll have done a great disservice to the people of Dublin. And I mean, even this, the value of the land in 2017 apparently was 15 to 20 million. The report from Brendan at the beginning of this month restated that the value of the land is between 15 and 20 million. Yet, and I thank you for the responses to the questions that I've submitted last evening, the value of that land now apparently is upwards of 35 million. The affordable purchase element of it, when we were presented, or the Central Area Committee was presented with the report in September, had a maximum affordable purchase price of 420. That's now down to 310. There's too many unknown quantities here. We're not getting a true value for that land. Some say it's 65 million, some say 70. I think we can develop the site in-house. We have the city architects who can either build a vision based on our indicative plans or commission a design team to do so. We can contract out using our own framework a building contractor to build the sites, and let's step up and fight against the very policies that you all say that you're against, but if you vote to actually see deal through, you will rubber stamp it. You will rubber stamp the failed neoliberal policies of Fine Gael, ably supported by Fianna Fáil, which has us in this housing and homelessness crisis.
Thank you, Councillor
Please
Lyons.
support
more than
the motion.
3 minutes, Councillor Lyons. Can I open the list? Councillor Daithí Doolan.
Gurmagat, Torvera, and we were happy to sign the motion to rescind along with our colleagues in the Independents and the People Before Profit. It was really cross-party cooperation. I suppose we do so because we're deeply concerned about the shambles that was at the November meeting. I went through all the correspondence several times between the Lord Mayor and the Minister and the Lord Mayor, and I think the agreement of Section 183 lies as a shambles. The Minister himself, who I'm not here to apologise for or be a spokesperson for, clearly pulls that agreement apart. And the 183, which was a 30%, 20% and 50% breakdown, was reached with the original agreement of the Social Democrats, Labour, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Greens, Independents, and nothing had, and Fianna Fáil and Co. in the original agreement never raised any concerns about the affordability or cost rental at the time in 2017. And unfortunately, for us, this was never the preferred option. We were never comfortable with that funding model of the land initiative. Our agreement, our support was always pending real, true, affordable units on that site. And affordability, even according to the Minister, of 300,000, that is not affordable for the ordinary working family in the city. So we have proposed an alternative funding model that will deliver on that site. It will deliver truly affordable, it will deliver cost rental, it will deliver council housing, and it will deliver community gain. And even according to the parliamentary questions that we raised directly with the Minister, we can build a one-bedroom house for 155,000, two-bedroom house 165,000. We can even build a one-bedroom apartment for 199,000, two-bed apartment 189,000. This is a lot cheaper than the 300,000 that's on offer with the shambles of the 183 vote that took place here in November. We're proposing a better, more efficient funding route to deliver a third social, a third real affordable and a third cost rental on that site, commencing in January with Part 8, commencing in January, April and July next year. And we're looking to vote to rescind the motion 183 and to ensure that Dublin City Council take on the true role as leading the development of that site and delivering real affordable housing for the people of Dublin.
Dermot Lace.
Lord Mayor, I'll be brief because I've spoken on this before. The vote at the last meeting was clear and we made a decision, and there was no shambles other than that the meeting was invaded by people. We have a duty to the people of Dublin. We have a particular duty to people on the Dublin City Council housing list, and we have a duty to low earners. The deal agreed by the Dublin Agreement parties and endorsed by this Council provides that 80% of the units on this site will go to those people. Applicants for our housing, people seeking affordable rent, people seeking affordable purchase. Any delay on this simply delays providing about 600 homes to people whom we should be supporting. We all know we have a housing crisis in this city, and I'm not actually going to name any party or mention any party in this contribution because we've all made the party political points, including myself, before. The choice tonight is whether we deliver 600 homes approximately to people who we should be championing, or delaying this process by a further 5 years. I'm in favour, as a pragmatic person who wants to deliver housing to people in need, to endorse this deal. Nobody is claiming this is the best deal in the world, because it's not. But nothing in politics is the best deal in the world. If we're serious about delivering to people whom we claim to represent, I believe we should take pragmatic decisions. This is a pragmatic decision to deliver 600 odd homes. I'm proud of the agreement because it is better than previous agreements, and I'm not blaming anybody for that. We all agreed, we all sort of tried to move along, but this is a better deal. So let's stick with the better deal. Let's deliver the homes to the people of this area. Let's stop the rot in O'Devity Gardens, and let's make a good decision for Dublin tonight. And I'm supporting the deal because it's a good deal for Dublin and a good deal for Dubliners.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. Councillor Janice Boylan.
There's a few facts that we seem to all be forgotten in this chamber, and that we're elected by the people and we should be doing what the majority of those people are asking us to do. O'Devity Gardens reached a stage it's at now with the majority of support from most of the parties in this chamber and some independents too. And in fairness, the people in the community did support at the time, the people who were there, the tenants and the majority of those living in the area. Mine and my party's continued support of that plan was based on the Fine Gael government actually delivering real affordable homes. That didn't happen, so my support was withdrawn, and some people in this chamber need to get over that. I stuck up for the plan when I first saw the figures, foolish enough to think the figures presented to us were affordable. Thankfully, I had colleagues who questioned me, and therefore I questioned the manager, and lo and behold, what I thought was affordable wasn't, because of how the figures were initially presented. I hold my hand up to that, it's on record. What I did was then investigate deeply the figures. I went and looked at the documents. I arrived at the place you all haven't yet. The so-called affordable homes aren't affordable to the vast majority of those wishing to live there by buying a real affordable home. And at all times, I and my party listened to the residents when dealing with this plan. They supported it then, and they don't support it now. And it would answer you all better to listen to these people instead of pretending you delivered a better plan. You didn't deliver a better plan. You all tried to hoodwink everyone saying you delivered more so you could go on to support the plan. The Section 183 that we voted on last month was the same plan that we started with, minus the real affordability that was promised to the people wanting to be able to buy a home and return to the O'Devany Gardens site. All of you who supported that plan last month may not care about this, but I do. And I'm calling on all of you now to do what's right and vote in favour of the wonderful people of O'Devany Gardens and against this plan. And I will gladly take the snide remarks and the jeers from any of you in this chamber, because I know I stood up for the people of O'Devany when none of you did.
Councillor Catherine Stocker, Councillor Mayor McDonagh.
Well, it's very clear when you go to the bottom line in relation to O'Devany Gardens and why we're in this situation. It goes back to the fundamental issue of government policy. And in fact, it was said by the manager, by the chief executive earlier on, in relation to the sites, the depots, and the possibility of developing public housing there. He says the department will not fund us. And there we have it. I mean, that is the right-wing ideology of the confidence and supply Fine Gael Fianna Fáil government. And they have created this mess. The Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael will throw brickbats at one another across this chamber, but that's at the root of this. Now, to go to the motion to rescind, the motivation for this, it's there very clearly in the motion. The late delivery of the report for the members' consideration, the misinformation circulated about the report and the so-called deal which we have in front of us, the unanswered questions. There is also the question, the issue that the ruling alliance here on this council met with the developer Bartra in private.
That's not true.
They never consulted.
Sorry, you're going to have to withdraw that, Councillor McDonagh.
You did meet them, didn't you?
No, that's not true, Councillor McDonagh.
Well, hold on. Let me clarify. Let me clarify my comment. The point was. No, hold on. Hold on a second. The point was there was no consultation with other parties. There was no consultation with the CPG. So I accept what you're saying if the management met with Bartra, but obviously the management then were in discussions with the ruling group. But there was no wider consultation with the membership of this council, with the CPG, as was done in the previous plan. That was the case. There was cross-party consultation, and it was done through the CPG. That did not happen. That's a fundamental problem with this so-called deal, which, for those reasons, should be rescinded.
Councillor McDonagh, I didn't interrupt your contribution, but Councillor Heaney sought to make a point of order in the middle of your contribution. Councillor Heaney, you're going to have to speak off the microphone. Councillor Stocker.
So, I initially supported this deal on the grounds of certain assumptions, which were that we would have access, or that the AHB involved would have access to low-cost, long-term finance, which now looks not to be the case, and in fact, finance will need to be raised through private financial institutions or credit unions, which are much more expensive sources of finance, and that it would potentially have access to the Service Site Fund, and the Minister's intervention has made it clear that he will act to try and block that. So the terms under which I initially accepted that are increasingly in question for me. I question whether it is possible to achieve affordability in terms of the affordable rental, which was a vital component to me. We tried hard in the group I was working with, and I criticise no one in that group. We tried hard to work to improve those terms, but in the face of a minister completely opposed to the delivery of affordable housing, we can no longer, or I can no longer, support his market-driven model. My concern is, if it goes ahead, that the affordable rental component, even if bought by an AHB, will not be able to be made affordable, and what will be passed off as affordability will end up negatively redefining what constitutes affordability in the city, and will set precedents for other developments such as Oscar Traynor and more broadly speaking on what affordability is. So on those grounds, unfortunately, I am no longer able to support the deal and will vote to rescind the motion.
Councillor Tina McVeigh. Councillor Stocker, you might deselect.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Chair. There's been a huge outpouring of anger about the decision of this council on O'Devany Gardens. Anger that we voted on the best possible deal, but that it wasn't one worth accepting. Anger that the numbers don't add up. Anger that affordable isn't really affordable. That the state won't fund public housing on this site. Anger that we will gift public land to a private developer for profit. Anger at old promises broken and new false promises made. Anger at the lack of transparency, at willing capitulation but no will to be bold or to be brave. Anger that the people of this city have had a decade of austerity foisted upon them, that they are at the cold face of the housing crisis but no recovery for them. Just profit for developers, for vulture funds and for landlords. And I think that this anger is justified, although it has been condemned and even mocked by some. We need to look at what this anger and see it for what it is. It's an assertion, I think, of rights and worth. It is communication, it is equality, and it is knowledge. It is a boundless and fearless embodiment of revolt and reconciliation. It is the living memory of austerity, of homelessness, of evictions, of rising rents, of overcrowding and substandard accommodation. It is rage and it is justice, and there is truth in that anger. It is the demand of accountability of all of us in this chamber. It is the expression of hope and a statement of need. And how much anger is too much? Certainly not the anger that I think we need for survival, for liberation, for creativity and for the urgency of the matter that is before us tonight. So I hope, fellow councillors, that you acknowledge this anger, that you hear the debate and the considerations that are put before you, that you embrace this anger for the commitment to social justice that it embodies, and that you vote to keep O'Devany Gardens where it belongs, which is in public control, in the hands of the people and for the common good of the people of this city.
Councillor Ray McAdam.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, as I said last week, I and my Fine Gael colleagues will be voting to preserve the deal that was on the table on the City Council agenda in October, the same deal that will be the subject of a development agreement that is signed by this Council and Bartra in the coming days. Why? Because despite the emails that I've received in recent days saying that they have my back, that I don't have to do this, I sought a mandate in May. In May's local elections, I sought a mandate that said that I wanted to build new and better housing in O'Devany Gardens. I wanted to add to the 56 homes that were currently under construction and will be finished by March. I want to make sure that at that stage was 564. We now have an additional 768 homes built on site. And I'm going to honour that commitment. And I and my Fine Gael colleagues are the only party who have stood up and have said quite clearly to the electorate, my electorate, the people who I live in, whose community I live among, who I'm proud to represent, that we will ensure that the homes in O'Devany Gardens are built. I will not be following the umpteenth position to my colleagues and comrades to the left, nor will I be following the position of some members, unfortunately, of the Social Democrats, who have as bad as some members who are as bad now as my colleagues to the left, who are jumping back and forth, 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I could be much more political tonight. I had questions last week that you, Lord Mayor, didn't want me to ask, and you weren't prepared to get answers. but I will seek those answers elsewhere. But I am not going to do anything, and nor is my party colleagues going to do anything that puts at risk the building of 824 homes in O'Devany Gardens. People have been promised, excuse my French, they've been bullshitted for too long, and we're not going to stand over it. We in this party will not. We want to see 824 homes built in O'Devany Gardens.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Costello.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, I've looked carefully at this motion to rescind, and there isn't a word about the substance of the deal. It's all about late delivery, misinformation, chaos, illegality. Nothing at all about the 824 houses that are to be built here after 20 years of devastation in O'Devany Gardens. And what we are proposing here is a much improved deal than what had been there before. Instead of 50% private housing, now it's 50% affordable housing. 20% local employment with 5% built into it of apprenticeship. That wasn't there before. We still have 30% social housing, but that is now ring-fenced for the local community. We have the full 7 million for community and cultural services. 5 million of that in the old deal was going into what was called a sinking debt for the demolition of the units there. Now, what we are getting is quite a large number of keyboard warriors. We get emails all the time from people all over the country. Very few which actually give their address. Very few in the community. And they
Without
have
interruption,
shifted,
Councillor Boylan.
and they have shifted,
Without interruption.
They have shifted their direction now to attacking the minister. Why don't you stand up against the minister? We are standing up to the minister. We are now in this deal.
Members.
In this deal.
I didn't allow anybody to interrupt you guys when you're speaking, please.
In this deal, we are demanding that the minister provide the funding for the affordable houses. He has refused to do that. He has to introduce the legislation and he has to make that available. He has made soundings that he is doing it, but the only example that he has done it so far is in the Shangana area on the south side. Let him do it here in O'Devany Gardens, which is a major development that will be able to house 2,500 people, that we can get building straight away. Dublin City Council can make a decision in relation to that, and we should ensure that we confirm that decision here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Kieran Perry. Sorry. Councillor Chris Andrews. We'll come back to you, Kieran.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I suppose this isn't just about O'Devany Gardens. This is about setting the bar for future developments. And this will be a template for other sites where we could build public housing on public land. The plan of the controlling group agreed among themselves is no longer. Councillor Stocker said it. The Minister won't agree to the controlling group's deal, and we need to rescind 183. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Mary Fitzpatrick.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and thanks, Manager, for the report and to all the staff for the work that they've done on this. I'm absolutely positive that the councillors who tabled this motion tonight want 100% public housing on public land, and I know that because when we introduced the Dublin Agreement to this chamber after the local elections, and we stated that collective objective, their first concern was what that objective would have on the work they had done on the O'Devany Gardens deal that they brought to this council. But let's just remember that we as a council are working within the confines of a government, and the Chief Executive earlier tonight told us which will not fund housing. We know we had to borrow money to just do the repairs to our own properties. So the government will not fund 100% public housing on public land. In fact, the government started out only giving 10% for this site and have been moved up to 30%. But what we are trying to achieve here are homes for people. And your motion doesn't talk about the 824 homes. It doesn't talk about the 254 social homes. It doesn't talk about the affordable purchase homes, which are not the 400-odd thousand that you had agreed, but 310,000. It doesn't talk about the 3 million community facility or the community creche or the playground or the pop-up parks or the shops or the local employment or the local apprenticeship clauses. So that's what's on the table. That's what you're asking us to vote against. And we don't live in an ideal world, and we have far from an ideal minister, and he won't fund this. But we will do all we can to ensure that that minister is taken out of office, that he is replaced, and that we will fund this deal. But if ye vote tonight, you're voting against 824 homes. You're voting for dereliction. You're voting for dereliction.
Councillor Fitzpatrick, can you pause for a moment? I'm going to give Councillor Fitzpatrick another minute if she gets interrupted. Nobody in this chamber has an entitlement to cut off anybody else, and it's been done twice now to two members. It shouldn't happen. Please allow the member to speak. Councillor Toole, you're in this chamber a lot longer than me. You know it's not acceptable. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
If you vote for this motion, you're voting for dereliction. The manager has told us all there is no plan B. The Chief Executive has told us all there is no funding for an alternative plan. It is a pipe dream you're selling to people. The Minister has told us that he will transfer the land to the Land Development Agency. There will be a for sale sign on it, and there won't be social housing, there won't be affordable housing. There'll be co-living, there'll be student accommodation, there'll be office space, but there will be nothing for the community of O'Devany Gardens. So vote to rescind this tonight and vote for dereliction.
Thank you. Councillor Donaghue. Without interruption.
Yeah, in an ideal world, we would have 100% public housing on public land on this site. But we're living under the constraints of a minister that is not in favour of cost rental model. I've looked for all the people that are looking for this. I've asked them, what is the solution? How do we fund this cost rental model? You know, if we were to get, and I've looked at all the models and all the funding models. I've asked the manager, and I've looked at other models around the world. And if we were to get the European Investment Bank funding, we wouldn't be able to pay the interest until we built it. So therefore, these lands would just sit derelict. And we may be able to do it in the longer term if we had a different minister and we had a different government. But that is holding off until we wait until there's an election. If there's an election, even in 4 months' time, it's still going to take time for somebody else to get in and for another plan to come aboard. And you're talking about, you know, another year out of people's lives sitting on a housing list, or sitting or trying to live in a family hub. And I do believe that this, he won't be able to prevent us. There is nothing in the legislation that actually prevents an approved housing body by going in and getting the cost rental 30% extra. There is nothing there. So tell me, is there something else, some way that he can prevent that? He can't. He can say he's not in favour of it, but there's nothing in the legislation that prevents an approved housing body from going in there. And you know, this agreement was already done even in the past, and what we've done is we've actually improved it. We've improved it, you know, to an extent, and I would be in danger. We were also in danger, and I'm saying, well, don't let the minister, you know, bully you into do this. We have all these things. It's not, you know. The fact is, he is in power. We have no other means to do this, and what we've got is a good deal comparatively, because the people that are living in there won't mind that the developer made a profit on it. They'll be concerned about that they be very high quality with all the community services.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kieran Perry.
Thanks, Lord Vera. When I come in tonight, I hadn't got too much confidence that we'd actually win this rescind motion. But I'm a lot more optimistic now, having heard Councillor Fitzpatrick, Lacey, Costello and Freehill speaking passionately against the disposal of council land at a previous debate. So I'm much more optimistic that those people will support this motion to rescind, or maybe end up being hypocrites. Or maybe be hypocrites.
Councillor Lacey, without interruption.
Yeah. So I'd like to correct the misinformation that both Councillor Lacey and Councillor Cooney have given. This deal isn't changed from the original deal, as will be confirmed by Councillor McAdam. What we have is a vague promise, not legally binding, of some unidentified approved housing body with an unidentified source of funding to pay for this mythical 30% that we're supposedly getting. What we're voting on here tonight is the privatisation of 70% of the units on public land in O'Devany Gardens. The exact same proposal that was deferred from the October meeting. And no rubbish or scam will convince anybody otherwise. Either way, it's a lose-lose proposal, because even in the unlikely event that the proposal for the purchase of the 30% of affordable rental goes ahead, it'll cost 120 million. 120 million. That's roughly 500,000 per unit that we're buying back from a private developer on public lands. How can anybody stand over that at all? How can anybody stand over that? And there's no point trying to blame the government. While they may have ultimate blame, at the end of the day, the councillors in this chamber are voting to give away public land. Good.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anthony Flynn.
Lord Mayor, thanks. I have to laugh at some of the comments that were made here in the chamber tonight. We were given out to the manager earlier on, or that side of the house was, in terms of selling off public lands, and public lands being sold off for capital projects. Yet what have we done? We've sold off the crown jewels. We sold off the biggest lump of land that we own in this council to a private development company that are coming in. We could have got 85 million, according to Mel Reynolds and others, in terms of if the council had sold that land themselves or built on that land. But when we talk about the privatisation of O'Devany Gardens, we're sitting, the agreement that I so famously tore up in this chamber, so it was said, that's not an agreement. That's not any kind of, it's a promise. It's a promise from a developer, and the same old pat-in-the-back politics is continuing to happen in this chamber again and again. When we look at the promise that we have from Bartra Capital, we're continuously listening to management telling us that we can't. Well, we can. It's up to us to tell management what we want to do in terms of the people that elected us. And if you go through your emails today, I think there was over 200 emails come in. People don't want us to sell O'Devany Gardens. People don't want us to move forward this plan that's so famously going to, build 800 odd houses. These houses will be sold back to the private market. We won't have a voluntary housing body, the unnamed voluntary housing body that's going to come in. A voluntary housing body would be acting outside of their remit if they were to pay us that amount of money, or go and pay the builder that amount of money for these houses. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's ridiculous to think that we're going to get what you believe we're going to get. Mary, you're nodding your head, and I swear to God, I love listening to you. If you honestly think, through the chair, if you honestly think that you're going to get that deal, I can't wait to see. And if it does happen, you know what? I'll stand with you up there. But unfortunately, I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to happen.
Councillor.
It's not going to happen. You've got a bogey. You're being fed a brick by management. You've all swallowed it, and we're going to continue to look at this for years. It's ridiculous.
Councillor Deirdre Conroy. Sorry, apologies. Councillor Anthony Flynn, if you could deselect.
Sorry.
Okay.
Councillor Deirdre Conroy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would say in an ideal world we should have a mix on the land. It is in such a fine location. We have organised that 80% of it will be social housing, affordable housing. It is essential that it's a mix of private housing as well, so that it isn't what has been gone for demolition, a compound. As Mary Fitzpatrick said, this contains, as we all should know, community hub, retail, creche, playgrounds, high-end design, insulation, low energy, appropriate materials. This is why it has to be done. It is a real-life issue. If we don't go ahead with this, there will be no housing. It's as simple as that. And no developers or contractors are going to go ahead on housing projects if this keeps going. That's what I say.
Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Lord Mayor, just taking up from Councillor Flynn, and again looking at this so-called extra 30% cost rental from an unnamed approved housing body. The Minister said very clearly in his letter to you, Lord Mayor, that nobody met him, nobody discussed this matter with him. You've made it up. Not me saying you've made it up. A minister that I'm totally critical of says you've made it up. You just plucked it out of the air. It's magical. Somewhere it appeared the morning before the November vote. What I want to say is I have been advocating the public housing model in this chamber and in the Housing SPC for many years. How it works is this, that you borrow money from the finance agencies, you can get it at 2% over 35 years, and that's what makes the rent affordable. Not buying at market price from a private developer over 20 years or whatever, that will make the rent unaffordable. So you have not achieved, you have not got one thing extra from what you said you were going to do after this was declared in October. And now, remarkably, we have a Fianna Fáil candidate in the next general election telling us that with a Fianna Fáil minister, she's going to deliver on the O'Devany site. Absolutely not. Tweedledee, Tweedledum, you will come up with the same excuses again and again and again. And I think the people of this city reject that, and they will see it for what it is. So what we need to do is stop allowing ourselves to be threatened by outside influences. The manager here said tonight, all of a sudden, that depot sites now could be sold, reversing what we had agreed on previously. We have a mantra from management that we are not going to build social affordable housing in this city. I call on the resignation of the management of this city as a result of that.
Councillor Alison Gillian, 2 minutes.
I think what we're essentially arguing over here tonight is whether a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And for me, I think the manager has made it very clear what the alternatives are, that if we go back to the drawing board, it would take us another 4 to 5 years to get to this stage where we're seeking planning permission. And even at that, there's no guarantee of funding. So the idea being put forward by Sinn Féin that we could submit for planning permission next January is completely misleading. Sadly, the Minister hasn't helped in that he hasn't recognised the need for affordable housing and hasn't brought forward a scheme, although I don't think his idea or even way of calculating an affordable rental scheme would align with ours. There's been a lot voiced about the lining of the pockets of the private market, and I just want to speak to that. We pay millions annually in HAP payments to private landlords with no tenant security. We pay millions for emergency accommodation to hotels and family hub operators, many of which are private to accommodate our homeless. A 4-year delay for the 192 social housing families that will be housed in this site will cost around 12 million taxpayers' money to private landlords, or around 28 million if these families are in homeless emergency accommodation. 4-year delay will cost the 400 families who would avail of more affordable accommodation almost 10 million in extra rent, and that's based on them saving €500 a month. So when making our decision to engage with barter, with the private market and the developer profit side of things, I also looked at the other side of the balance sheet. And that's the side where families are waiting, often in overcrowded situations, private rental with no tenant security. They're costing in times of emotional stress, and they're costing the taxpayers. It's a horrible deal. We are horribly constrained. But to me, we have a bird in the hand here. And I don't think within 10 years we could deliver something similar. So in 5 years' time, at least we know 605 families will have a roof over their heads that is affordable or social. Thank you.
Councillor James Kagan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I only have questions. Could the law agent clarify what is the legal status of this motion as it relates to Section 183 reports? And if this motion was to be brought on another occasion, is that permitted under the Standing Orders or the Local Governments Act? And were a motion of this form to ever be brought after a development agreement had been signed that relied upon a Section 183 report that we had signed, what would be the impact on that development agreement? And if those questions could be clarified, I think that would be of assistance. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
And to conclude, Councillor Tom Brabazon.
A lot of the contributions tonight kind of focused on the the so-called non-existence of the voluntary housing bodies. I did some very cursory research today into some of the housing bodies and how their funding is leveraged. And for example, Two Housing in 2018 raised 171 million, and they spent either acquiring or building 650 homes. So by comparison to what we're doing under this project, we're doing far better in terms of the numbers per euro spent. Clúid in 2018, with support from the Housing Finance Agency and private finance, raised 76% of their funds that they're required to build 398 units. So, you know, by all accounts, as far as I can see, it does look like the funds are there and eminently raisable, and it's open for these. They're not phantom organisations; they do exist, and it's open for the council to seek expressions of interest, as was part of the agreement.
Thanks, Councillor Robinson. And from my own behalf, I just want to reiterate a number of points. I made them at the last meeting. This council passed a report put forward by the Assistant Chief Executive. It was not something that was conjecture. It was considered by the law agent. The report says that it included legal advisors from both sides of the developer and the City Council, and that the acting law agent and Dublin City Council and independent legal firm, who are all being part of the procurement governance structure, are fully satisfied that the arrangement proposed by Bartra have no legal implications on the process. And there lies the problem, because unlike the issues which we related earlier, the sites we referred to earlier, this site was the subject of a public procurement process. It was a process that bound all of our hands. And as Councillor Gilliland says, a bird in the hand versus two in the bush. I want to acknowledge the integrity of everybody who's participated on this debate. I think everybody wants to have a better model of public housing on this site. But the Chamber can be divided into those who are willing to wait to get a more perfect solution, and those who aren't willing to wait and who press ahead with the compromises. And I think on that basis, the management put forward a proposal which it felt could get through the Chamber, and it did. The only situation now that needs to arise is that using existing national housing policies, for example, the purchase of units by approved housing bodies, which needs a department approval, the Minister should just go ahead and do that. Secondly, the Minister should publish the affordable rental scheme, which he has long promised, and I believe this puts pressure on him to do it. To rescind this motion prevents the construction of houses, takes the pressure off the Minister to purchase more houses available to people who need them, and takes the pressure off the Minister to publish an affordable rental scheme. They're things that we want. I'm not prepared to wait or to ask people who come to my clinic to wait. I accept the bona fides of those who are, but I don't believe it's the majority view of this Chamber, and that's why we voted for it as a Chamber, not as a group or a coalition or anything else, as a group of councillors who represent this city, and we passed a report that had legal standing from the Assistant Chief Executive, and any other sort of spin on it just isn't correct. We put the motion to a vote. Sorry, apologies, Councillor Geoghegan.
I confirm what the legal advice I've already given through the manager, and which the Lord Mayor has already reproduced here. I confirm that technically another motion could be presented to rescind, and not, however, if after a contract has been signed.
Can we proceed to vote now? I just want to make it very clear. If you're voting in favour of the rescind motion, you're voting yes. So if you're voting to retain the...
Members.
If you're voting to retain the decision that was made at the last meeting, you're voting no.
And the threshold required? And
the threshold required is 32 to rescind. 32 votes required to rescind. Okay? So can you please proceed to vote on that? Are we good to go? Councillor Cooney, you appear not to have voted.
Press your card.
Press your... Press Iloher first, and then press your... Okay. Okay. We're stopping the vote now. While just that's being printed out to present to the Lord Mayor, can I just take items 21 to 33? Can I? These are items for all for noting. Can I have a proposer for that, Councillor Flanagan and Councillor Jackson, Declan Flanagan? Sorry. Can I also propose? Those numbers again, sorry. 20. It's 21. Right down to 33. Okay. Can I also take, now these are very positive reports and you should read them in your own time, is the Halloween activities and the EPA very positive report, but items 18 and 19 for noting.
Deirdre, Councillor McAdam asked that motion in regard to the Halloween reports will be circulated to the area committees and the area offices.
Okay, we'll do.
Is that agreed?
Agreed. So 18 and 19, that was Nolene Riley and Tina McVeigh. Okay.
Sorry, before we go into questions, I'm going to read the results of the vote, if that's okay.
Okay.
Of the 57 members present, 22 members voted in favour of rescinding the motion, rescinding the report, and 35 voted against. So the motion to rescind fails.
So then we, with
Councillor McVeigh. Can everyone deselect, please? Councillor Moynihan. Moynihan. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Mary.
What? Sorry. Oh. Sorry, I just wanted, Deirdre, did you...
Councillor Boylan, I am talking about you now, though.
Which
Councillor
reports
McVeigh.
did you say? Are we taking report number 17? Because if not, I have a question on it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that just leaves item 20, which is the remunicipal.
Can I ask the chair of the report, Councillor Doolan, to come in on that item?
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor McVeigh?
Flat structure, no chair.
There's no chair, you're a flat structure. I wasn't aware of that. Councillor Doolan. Try and be inflated, Councillor Doolan.
Yeah, appreciate that, Lord Mayor. On behalf of the flat structure, the group formerly known as the Working Group on the
Members, can I ask that everyone takes their seats?
I'll be brief. Just first of all, I want to commend all the parties involved in the all-party working group. I think it was truly worked shoulder to shoulder on this issue, and the unions that were represented, and the management who engaged with us as well and provided us with expertise, knowledge. I think it's a major step towards a remunicipalisation of waste, or as well, taking it back into local government ownership. And I think the work we did was important. I think it was focused. It was based on a motion that was adopted in July. And I think it really was cross-party work delivering on a motion, and that's important for this council. I think the appetite to take the waste collection service back into ownership is out there in the public domain. I think it's also reflected here in the chamber. But more importantly, I think what we're trying to do is we recognise that the waste collection service was privatised in 2012, but we're not trying to turn the clock back, Lord Mayor. What we're trying to do is build a waste management service fit for purpose for a 21st century Dublin that's environmentally friendly, that reflects the need to challenge climate change, to make it accessible, to make it transparent, accountable, and also to ensure that the householders benefit as much as the environment. We need to ensure that the costs that are spiralling out of control are reduced by a service delivered by Dublin City Council. We have the expertise, we have the staff, and we hope to move forward. In there is a number of recommendations that we hope were reflected in the budget. Many thanks to Kevin for the work he did on that and making sure it's in the budget. But a practical recommendation, Lord Mayor, I'd like to make here this evening. to ensure that the work is ongoing, that the working group as it stands becomes a subgroup of the Environment SPC to allow it to develop policy through the SPC and to the full City Council. We're not at that point yet. It's just simply an update, it's simply a report. It's not policy development yet. It's not calling for change in policy yet. But if the people involved, both the City Councils, including myself and from the other parties, and the trade unions and the management would remain part of that working group and part of a subgroup of the SPC, and would maintain its current structure rather than trying to go back to ground zero again.
Councillor Doolan, can I clarify 2 points on that? I take your suggestion, and as we've discussed earlier, that would have to firstly be agreed by the CPG, and I expect that they will do that. And secondly, that the current membership, time-wise and so on, may have difficulties, so that each party who has a representative on it will be allowed either reappoint the person that they currently have or swap out a representative, but that it would sit as an SPC under the Climate Action SPC. And I'm going to ask the chairperson of that SPC to indicate. You're not on the list, Michael. Is that okay? Agreed. Okay. So, can the council agree to Councillor Doolan's proposal? Agreed. I have other speakers on this report, which I will take until 10 o'clock, and the first person is Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Okay. Thanks, Lord Mayor, and thanks to everybody who has worked on this project so far. I absolutely support that the work to re-municipalise domestic waste collections in the city is brought under the SPC. I suppose you and I were both on the council. We've vociferously opposed the privatisation of the waste collections in the city. It has led to an increase in illegal dumping. My own constituency is one of the worst affected by it. We included costs in the budget that we just passed. I know others in this chamber abstained on the budget and voted against the budget and now seek to include this. We were happy to include this in the budget for the City Council. It's really important that we as a City Council over the next 5 years take a lead on this issue to address illegal dumping, to ensure that homeowners have an affordable and reliable service. And it is rightful, Lord Mayor, that this would be managed under the SPC and the chair of the SPC. So we wholly support that proposal and thank those who have worked on it so far.
Councillor Ray McAdam.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I just want to have the opportunity to endorse the recommendations of the report and say that I think I look forward to having the opportunity to engage with the members of the committee on it, and the trade unions and the council management, because I think one of the things, particularly at the last meeting, there was a very good engagement. We may not have always agreed, but I think the engagement that took place, particularly the unions, ourselves and the management, I think was very good, and particularly in light of the fact that some of the questions were raised, that we're likely to have a consultation, the Minister's likely to announce a consultation early in the new year. I think will provide all of us with an opportunity to really take part in that. So I want to endorse the recommendations of the report and look forward to further engagement in the matter.
Thank you, Councillor McAdam. Councillor Kevin Donoghue.
I'll keep it brief to facilitate the remaining speakers. Just want to welcome this report. It was great to work on it. There was cross-party collaboration from the outset, and I'd just like to acknowledge the role that the unions would have played in allowing a conversation that may otherwise not have been as constructive as it was. I think that there's a number of challenges ahead of us. I look forward to facing those challenges. I think the report is very comprehensive, and it's a good base, a good flat surface on which to build from. So thanks very much.
Councillor John Lyons.
Yeah, just to speak to the report, fully support it, commend all the work that went into it. More broadly support the campaign, More Power to You, Force Connect and SIP2. I think it's a first step in trying to radically change a very weak and dysfunctional local government system here in Ireland, so fully support it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to take a radical step in relation to the delivery of public housing, but hopefully public waste management will soon be a reality in the City of Dublin.
Councillor Tina McVeigh.
Thanks, Chair. Just very quickly to say absolutely it was very nice to work on a cross-party basis on this report. I'm very encouraged by it and looking forward to the future, and just to encourage people who were anxious to jump in to praise and recommend the remunicipalisation of waste to feel free to come to meetings and put the work in as well. That would be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. Can I remind members that on Wednesday the 4th of December at 12:30, that's this Wednesday, there's a meeting of the House dealing with the issue of election posters. The management has brought forward a number of proposals dealing with election posters which will be applied to the next local elections, and to avoid us spending a lot of time at the next... It was adopted before the speech.
Lord Mayor, I have a question.
It's noted, councillor. So can I remind members of the meeting of the House on the election post?
I have a question. I had a topical issue for tonight, so is that going to go for next council meeting?
Yes.